Welcome to week 10, day 44 of the spring 2025 Web Technologies course. I'm Jim Kaufman with Rankin Technical College. So today, I'd like to start with going over the resume a little bit. The web portfolio is due Wednesday by midnight, and kind of want to go over. I meant to do a separate video last week, but we'll just go ahead and go over that now. Just kind of want to go over the resume a little bit, and also being able to create a PDF from your resume, and then also having a link. You can have a link from your web portfolio so you can print up that PDF so someone could download that if they want it. And then we'll go ahead and do a lecture over Chapter 6, which is how to script the DOM with JavaScript. And I'll quickly walk through the Chapter 6 assignments. They're pretty straightforward, but I'll go ahead and walk through them quickly. So, okay, let's go ahead and look at I got a sample resume here. I want to go ahead and bring up. So, this is a made-up person, and Alex here. So, just kind of wanted to. This is just a suggested resume. You can lay yours out however you want to. I just wanted to point out some things from my perspective that I think would be a good idea, especially being new to the job, this career, so to speak, and some things that might be beneficial to kind of list earlier in the resume as opposed to later in the resume. So first, what I would do is also have multiple resumes. So I'd have a resume that you're going to use for your web portfolio, and then I'd also have a resume that that you would use if you're going to send an employer, just directly to an employer. So if you're going to send something directly to the employer, I would include your phone number. I'd actually put your full address and your phone number if you're going to send it to, some specific employer. But for the online, I wouldn't put your phone number. That's just my perspective. On your web portfolio, I wouldn't put your phone number, but I would go ahead and include your link to your web portfolio, your LinkedIn account, your LinkedIn page, etc. And another thing is, as far as you probably should, besides having, so I'm looking at two different, resumes, one for your public web portfolio, another one to send to employers. But even the one you send to employers, you may want to have some separate ones there too, or have one and you just kind of adjust it a little bit, because you might want to highlight certain things. So if the job is not really, let's say the job's about HTML, Bootstrap, React, Node, those technologies, which we'll be learning later, React and Node. If it's about that, you might want to highlight those a little more in your resume. So you might want to adjust your resume. But you don't want to just get rid of, like, if the C# stuff, even if the job you're going for doesn't mention C#, you don't want to get rid of that completely off your resume. But you may want to make some adjustments to highlight some of the other technologies the technologies that's related to the job, so to speak, right? So keep that in mind. And so, make sure that you have a link to your portfolio. Make sure you have a link to your LinkedIn account if you haven't already created a LinkedIn account. And a LinkedIn account's very, very useful, very highly, it's used in the industry very much. Probably almost everybody I've ever worked with has a LinkedIn account, right? So, that may be something that you've never created before, especially if you haven't been working in a job for very long, or any kind of industry. You probably don't have a LinkedIn account, but please go ahead and create that. I put that as part of the requirements for the web portfolio. So go ahead and do that. So here, after your kind of your introduction of who you are here, go ahead, and after that you want to kind of do maybe a couple different things here on this. And there's no right way and wrong way necessarily. But I've seen a lot of resumes that kind of actually list either like technical skills first, or maybe like software development projects first. Okay. Now, if you've got a lot of experience, if you've got a lot of experience in the area, or if you got some things that are really important, or that maybe have some leadership stuff as far as some experience in leadership in that, maybe you want to move your job experience more to the top of your resume. Okay, that's optional. There's different thoughts on how to construct a resume, and a lot of people work in HR, they always put your experience first. But in this kind of career, especially if you're going for an entry level job and you haven't done anything, I think having things that are relevant, that you can highlight for your career would be that for your everything you've done within your educational first, then you probably should do that, right? So here, this is highlighting technical skills, and I'd break something down like this. So programming skills, web development skills, database management, development tools, version control. Now I know not everybody has all these things yet, because you're not finished with the program. So obviously you want to remove some of the things that you don't have. So there's quite a few people that are in this course right now that have already taken C#. So right here with your programming skills, you want to pretty much leave that alone. None of you probably have done ASP.NET yet. That's later on. That's the Database Driven 2 course. But you want to include the ones that you have already done. The web development skills that you do have. So if you've done C#, you've done SQL, but you haven't done MongoDB yet. So remove the things that aren't relevant right now, and you can add them back later. But I think this is a good way to separate the different areas, programming languages, web development, database management, development tools, and version control. And then after that, I have software development projects listed here. So here's kind of like the very first one, very first one we've done. We've done some stuff in C#, and you can go ahead and include some of those projects as well. But you want to make sure that maybe you have some kind of a link to something, either to your web portfolio where you might have some screenshots. That obviously live stuff is always the best, right? So it's kind of best to have like a live link to your, like in here, you've got your RSS news aggregator, which was basically your midterm project. Basically, I click on that, and you go right to it, right? And this is just the base classes of that. But so that's always good to be able to have that, so you can click on it. Someone downloads this, they'll have that link to that. Okay. After that, and then this is something we really want to work on filling this up. You really want to get a lot of examples of different software projects you've worked on. Okay, so we really want to work on this. This is a very important part of your resume. As far as education's concerned here, different ways you can lay this out. And I'll tell you a reason why I kind of thought that this was kind of a more appropriate way. I list each of the courses that are part of this program, and also I added the number of credit hours. And the reason, and I'm not saying have to do this, but from my perspective, I was just thinking, okay, so here's a recruiter, or somebody who works in HR, a hiring manager, whatever, brings up and looks at your your resume and sees your education here and just sees like, without putting 14 credit hour courses on each one of these, they would just see, okay, there's 4 courses, and they may not know, they probably don't know how many credit hours it is. And a lot of courses at a lot of, colleges are 3 credit hours, 4 credit hours. There's courses that are more than that, but a typical amount of credit hours per course is usually around 3 or 4 or whatever, right? So I think it's worth highlighting that these are 14 credit hour courses. It's, oh, wow, okay, that's something substantial here, right? Not just, oh, you took 4 3 credit hour courses and okay, right? I think it's worth having that. That's my opinion, okay? As far as education is concerned, I would, so obviously if you've already graduated, I'm just using this, I know there's going to be some people are going to be ready to graduate in December of this year. Some it'll be, into 2026. But obviously, if you're not graduated, I'd put something expected, whatever you want to put there, planned, expected, whatever. Once you do graduate, you can get rid of that. As far as the GPA is concerned, from my perspective, what I would do on this, if you've got maybe a 3.5 or higher, I'd list it here. If you don't have, if your GPA is lower than that, I would just get rid of it. I wouldn't include it at all. Okay. That's just my opinion on that. And then your job experience. Like I said, you really want to highlight certain things depending on what job experience you have at this point. If it's something, anything that you can show leadership is always good. Or if you've been at a job for quite a long time, maybe years, then employers love to see that. Oh yeah, you've been working somewhere for 3 years. That's beneficial because it's, oh well, it's somebody who sticks with things, going to hang around. They're not just going to get this job and move on to something else, right? So obviously in your job experience, you don't want to list things like, oh, I worked here for 3 months, then here for 3 months. You kind of want to think through that a little bit. And then, like I said, obviously, if you've been somewhere for quite a long time, you really want to, make sure that you have that, worked there for 3 years. Make sure it's obvious that by looking at it, oh yeah, you've been there for 3 years, right? And then, make sure that you really highlight, like I said, like any kind of to do with leadership, anything with technical and anything, even if it's not computer related technical stuff, but anything that can kind of show that you've got technical skills. If you can kind of weave that in, so to speak, into your description of your job, that's very beneficial. But like I said, I think, one of the important things, make sure, if you've worked at, different places and you weren't there very long, just be careful about how you handle that. Okay. And then I would kind of like awards or honors or any kind of things, volunteer type work. I'd go ahead and enter that last in here. I think it's important to try to, and you don't have to do it like this. This is just one suggestion, okay? Come up with your own ideas on that. I would try to get everything to fit on one page. And sometimes when you start getting a bunch of software development projects, it's going to be getting a little harder. But you can go ahead and do some different things with this. So even like this technology skills area here, instead of having this, because this is, there's a lot of space here on the right-hand side that you're kind of missing out on. So what you can actually do is something like this. You can insert, and this is using Microsoft Word. You might be using some other application. You can do something like create a table here, right? And then in here, just ideas on to get things to fit on one page, right? And then I'm going to just take this and put this over here, right? So then, you kind of create a little bit more space here maybe for yourself. this is something you can just play around with. I'm no expert either here on this. Table properties, you can come down here, borders and shading. You can have them, if you want the borders, that's fine. Or you can have none, right? And so that gets rid of that. Obviously, you want to kind of center this in the middle of the page and stuff, right? So this ain't gonna, so things like that. And you might want to spread it out even a little more. You might have 3 columns instead of 2 columns. Just ways to kind of save room, right? To kind of get everything to fit on one page, I think is beneficial. For now, I'm just going to go ahead and put it back to where it was. All right. Okay. So, this is something that's going to evolve. Even, your first attempt. Some of you might already have resumes, and you might be very happy with them. I'm not saying that you need to change your resume. This is just some possible suggestions. So let me show you one other thing here, too, you can do. So on this resume, let's go ahead and what I want to show you is being able to get this as a PDF. So what you can do here is, I want to create this as a PDF, and then you can put this on your web portfolio, have a link, and you click that, and it'll open up a PDF within an HTML document, okay? And then, so an employer or anybody interested in looking at your resume can kind of download it from there, okay? So there's a couple different ways here, and there's kind of like a newer way nowadays. So I'm going to click export. So export here. And they have this create Adobe PDF. And it says convert one document PDF free for every 30 days. And that's fine if you want to use that, but you're obviously only going to do that one time. But you can click this. I think this is going to be better quality. I haven't really done this. I don't know how long this has been like this. It might have been here longer than I'm aware of. But this, you can choose this one and then create PDF like this. And then here, I'm just going to save this to my desktop. Let's change this to resume 1. And I'm just going to click publish here. I'm just going to put that on my desktop. And then in my, let me bring up, all right. So here, well, and you can just copy it over. This is a earlier version I had, but just copy it into your directory structure of your web portfolio, and then in your index.html, whatever HTML document it is, maybe this could be resume.html, whatever you decide on that. And what I would put actually in your resume.html file is not more than just I would put maybe create your resume like maybe using an accordion or something, that you have the different sections, right? And then you can use, the bootstrap accordion for your different sections of your resume, right? But then also have a link that's going to link to a different HTML file, which would be like this one here, right? And obviously index is not what you want to call this, because the index.html, when you create your GitHub pages, that's what it looks for as your home page, and that's not what you want. So whatever you're going to call this, it's going to be different than index.html though, right? But what I'm doing here is using this object tag, and for data, the name of the file, which references this file right here, okay? And so that if I bring this up, and I'll go ahead and send this to everyone. If you bring this up, open to live server, and this is what this will look like. So this is actually a different version than what I already had from earlier, but I can go ahead and copy that over. But here's it's an HTML a PDF document, and then someone can just come over here and click download it, right? So they can download your resume. So like I said, I would include it as I would use the accordion maybe within your web portfolio, but then also have a link that's going to open up another HTML document that will have this embedded object. Okay. And just for the heck of it, let me get rid of this one and use the new one I just created here real quick. So I put that on my desktop. Let me find that here. All right, let's look at this one. Oh, something went wrong with that one. That's interesting. Oh, I know what went wrong. I got to call the right thing. There we go. So obviously you're going to play with this. Maybe, you know, want to get this a little better, more, you know, more centered maybe, you know, adjust things, etc. But, you know, so here's your PDF version. Try to get everything on one page. This is obviously going on to a second page. And, you know, so maybe you work with your spacing a little bit. Actually, I sent this to some other students previous semester, and I had actually some of these descriptions on these different education things a lot longer than this. I cut this down just so more things will fit. So you might have to do some adjustments is there on that as well, just to get try to get everything on one page, right? So it can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes. If it extends on the second page, it's not the end of the world, but I would try to keep everything on one page. All right, so that's that. So I'll go ahead and send this, it's pretty basic here, but I'll go ahead and send this to you. And so you can go ahead and add that to your web portfolio. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at Chapter 6. So some of this DOM stuff we've kind of already done a little bit of, and even the midterm. The midterm was the RSS feeds. We were using XML documents. We were actually using the DOM for that, and we're using it for the XML documents as opposed to HTML document, right? But here we're going to be really focusing on HTML document for this. So so the document object model represents the structure of the HTML or XML document as a tree, where each part of the document is a node. These nodes can be elements, attributes, text, or comments. JavaScript can interact with the DOM to dynamically modify the content, structure, and style of a web page. Let's go ahead and take a quick look here. So here is a picture of an image of a HTML DOM object model where, here's the document. You got your root element, and then it's showing you've got your head, which, your head's really required. You need to make sure you have a head, which includes your title, and that's showing your text title here. So this is just your text, the text node of title, right? And then over here on the right-hand side, you got your body, and it's just showing you an example where you may have an A tag for a link or H1 tag. So them are your elements, and these are your text nodes down here, right? That's in part of your tags, right? In the inner part of your tags. And here it's showing an attribute. You have an attribute for an A tag, which is an href, right? I would spend a little time here with W3 schools. This can be helpful for you. So with the object model, JavaScript gets all the power it needs to create dynamic HTML. Here's all the different things you can do. You can change your HTML elements. You can change your attributes. You can change the CSS styles on a page. You can remove existing HTML elements and attributes. You can add new ones. You can react to all the existing events on the page. And you can create brand new events dynamically, right? So this is a little tutorial that could be really beneficial to you. It's going to show you how to walk through the DOM, how you can do different things in the DOM, right? So I would spend a little time on this. I'll send you the link to this as well. You can answer some of these simple questions. What's DOM stand for? Document object model. Obviously, if you want to sign in and create an account, that's fine. There's not a lot of questions here, just a few. Just an option there. All right. So different types of nodes. You have the document node, which is the root node representing the entire HTML document. You have elements representing an HTML element, such as a div, paragraph, or span tag. Attributes represent the attribute of an HTML element, like ID or class, or href or an A tag. Text represents the text content within an element. And then comment represents an HTML comment. So different ways to access nodes. So to access different DOM nodes, you can use the get element by ID. We've done that. You can get elements by class name. You can get elements by tag name. You can get, you use the query selector and query selector all. Different options, right? Sometimes you can use query selector all to get all the tag names as well. There might be some advantage, reasons you might want to use one over the other, but for the most, probably I would use query selectors if at all necessary. One thing you want to make sure you do though is, you want to make sure that if there's multiple tags on the same page, say multiple A tags, you want to make sure that you use the selector all. If you accidentally, that's the easy mistake to make is using query selector. You don't want to use query selector if you have multiple of the same tags to try to get a tag, because it's only going to return the first one, not all of them, right? So you got to be careful with the selector and selector all in that case, right? The query selector is a little more powerful, where you can use the hash or the pound sign to return an ID, right? Or you can just use the tag name itself. So there's different options there on query selector. Whereas get element by tag name's only going to reference only the ones that have a certain tag name, right? All right. So manipulating nodes. Once a node is accessed, its properties and methods can be used to manipulate it. And I know we've done a little bit of this already. Text node, text content. I believe we've done a little bit of that. Inner HTML, we've done that one. I know that was part of the midterm where we went ahead and changed the inner HTML dynamically. So the text content gets or sets the text content of a node. And then inner HTML gets or sets the inner content of an HTML node. And then you have a set and get attributes. Just remember, for set attribute, you need you need both the name and the value to set it. For get, you just need the name. Then you also have a node style dot property. It sets the CSS style of a node. And then you can do an append child. All right. So if you have a div tag, you can get that div tag, right? And then you can append a child. Let's say you have a div tag and you can append a child of a p tag, right? So you have a div tag and you can append multiple p tags underneath that, right? Or a div can also have child div tags as well, right? But just an example there. And then remove a child. You can remove a div tag, right? A div tag, a p tag, a child, any child node of a parent, right? Parent-child relationship. And always remember when you're doing this, it's not actually removing it from the HTML file, right? JavaScript don't work like that. This DOM is happening in memory, right? It's happening in the memory of that specific document. It has nothing to do with the physical structure of your HTML document. You know, your original one, that doesn't change. You know, JavaScript and the DOM manipulation does not change that physical page. It's basically changing the document object model that's in the memory, right? And then you can do a replace where you can replace one node with another node. So you could replace one div tag with a different div tag. And then you can also use a document create element to create a new element node. And then you can also do a create a text node, creates a new text node as well. All right. So let's go ahead and look at some examples. All right. So here we've got an HTML document with embedded JavaScript. And so what we're doing here on this first one here, DOM properties and methods. Let's see if we can make this a little bit, make this a little bigger here. So we're adding event listeners for on click for like this change text, right? So we got this as a property button. This is ID, change text is a property button, and we're doing on click event. And then on click, we're getting the element by ID of demo text, which is demo text up here, right? And then we are doing a text content on that, and we're changing the text to text changed. So this is a demo text, will be changed to text changed, right? So I'm going to click on this, and there you go. And then also, just to show you, just highlight this since we said that. So text change, if we go view page source here, we come down here. This is a demo. This does, like I said, this is when you do view source, this is the physical HTML document. This isn't going to change, right? This will never change when you're using JavaScript to change the DOM, doing DOM manipulation. This is never going to change, right? This is the physical HTML. But if you go ahead and do F12 key here, bring up developer tools, and if we look at elements and we go ahead and drill in here, so which one was this first one here, right? So this is text change. So if I refresh this and come back in here, this is a demo text. And then over here on the left-hand side, you can watch this. Once I click this, text changed, right? So it updated. This is the DOM. This is the element. This is the DOM, and so it changed this based on me clicking on that, right? Okay. Here we're doing another get element by ID. And we're just showing the node. We're getting a node type and node name. Okay. It's going to always, a node's always going to have a type and a name. So if I click on show node info, it's going to be a pop-up. This is node type 1, node name P. All right. Let's go take a look at the HTML up here. So here it's a P tag, so that's why it's going to say P. All right. If we change this to a different tag, let's just change this to another div tag. And save that. And let's run this again. So this time it's going to show div, right? So it knows what kind of tag it is. Okay. Next one here, document element methods. So what this is doing is getting the ID of element container, and it's appending a new element. So here's a new element with a P tag. So it's creating a new P tag, and it's appending this to the element container, right? So let's go ahead and look at the element container up here real quick. So here's the element container. This is just a div tag, nothing inside. And so we're going to be appending, right, to this. New P tags, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click create element. And this is just creating new paragraphs, new P tags. So if we go ahead and do an F12 on here, yep, wrong one, right? Oh, I had the right one. So here's all the new paragraphs. So every time you hit create element, it's going to create a new paragraph, right? So next one is classlist.property. No, I skipped this one. The DOM HTML properties. This is just getting a value, and then, yep. So, which we've already done this before, right? It's just getting the value of a field. Input value equals test. So, nothing too special there. It isn't, in this case, it's actually setting the text content, right? So if we actually went and looked at that, let's go look at that real quick here in the this a little bigger, easier to see, get the value. It's updating this, right? So if we refresh, let's just refresh this and let's go grab that again just to see it. So the result didn't have anything in here. Get value, and so it added this, right? And it added that using the text content. The text content here, right? Classless property. So we're doing here, we're doing changing this to a warn. Okay. So this is using class list, and it's going to toggle. So let's go look at the class list.txt up here. Where's that? So it's grabbing this, and it's grabbing this class list. Right, this is the class. This is considered the class. Well, the class list is whatever in here. Right. So when I go ahead and click toggle class, as you can see, it's going to change class list demo, which is right here. And this is a toggle. It'll toggle back and forth. Okay. That was that one. So just remember, toggle is different than adding or removing. You can add or remove a style from a class list, but toggle is just toggling it back and forth. You click it the first time, it's going to put it in there, right? And then you click it another time, it's going to remove it. Toggles it, right? Now here, we're doing a query selector all, getting a question on click. Yeah. So here we're changing the display, the style display. All right. So here, if you want to, on the right-hand side here, this is similar to Bootstrap, kind of, this kind of making an accordion using JavaScript, so to speak, right? You're clicking on, it's expanding this element is what it's doing, right? Click on this, expands this element. Same here. So you got two different ones, and you're expanding it or collapsing it. Let's see this next one here. Pretty basic here. I don't really know there's much to, just showing you how to get different values. These are pretty, we've done a lot of this already. And just remember, doing query selectors, especially like input fields, you need to specify what kind of input it is. In this case, it's a radio button. All right. And also make sure if you're using single quotation marks, then you really want to use double quotation marks in here. If you're using double quotation marks everywhere, you want to make sure you're using a single quotation marks here to get those, right? So radio button, checkbox, text area, right? There's different input types, right? So you need to make sure you have the name correct. Here's an advent listener, edit node. So this is creating a new element as opposed to appending a child, right? You're not appending, you're just creating a whole new create an element div. Yep, you're just creating a brand new element. So let's go ahead and look at that. Let's go look at how this is getting add node. So let's just look at the HTML real quick here. Add node. It's the button, and we have modify DOM. Let's look at modify DOM here. It's not really getting that. No, it's getting the node container. It is appending a child, but this is just creating a new element where you can create a bunch of different elements and then append. Then you're appending that to as a child. But that's just one way to create an element. It's probably very similar to what we already did, though, isn't it? Up here. What's the difference? Pretty much the same thing. We create an element, append it. No different there. So there's just adding nodes. And you're just clicking and you're adding a node, appending the child. So, all right. Let's go look at let's review this Chapter 6 study guide here real quick. So you got some written tests, Chapter 6 and Chapter 7 this week. So core DOM concepts. What is DOM? Is Document Object Model, which is a programming interface for web documents. Okay. Represents the page so that the programs can change the document structure, style, and content. The DOM represents the document as a tree structure of nodes. It's built as the browser loads the HTML. So keep that in mind that it happens when you bring in HTML, this DOM gets created in memory at that point in time when the browser loads the HTML document. The DOM is a hierarchy structure of nodes. Nodes represent HTML elements, attributes, text content, and comments. Key node types include the root node, is a document node. Element nodes represent HTML elements, p tags, div tags, a tags, etc. Text node contains the text content of an element. So when you're saying the text content of an element, it's going to be when you're using tags where you've got a beginning tag and then you've got your end tag, and it's going to be between your beginning and end tag. It's going to be your text content. An attribute node represents an attribute of an element, such as like ID, class, source, href, etc. The DOM core specification. This defines the fundamental properties and methods for working with the DOM. Provides a standardized way to access and manipulate the DOM. And like I said earlier, we're looking at really from the HTML DOM from this perspective of this chapter and that, but we've already done we've already kind of seen a little bit of the XML because we did that for our midterm, where that method I wrote to parse through those RSS feeds. That's basically using a DOM parser to step through those different XML elements, right? They're just different. And those XML elements were, created based on the standards for RSS feeds, which, it's a little different sometimes between different organizations, how they actually structure that stuff. So it's not really as standardized as it should be because some of those organizations do that a little differently. But so sometimes you have to write your code. For HTML, that's pretty standardized, and you really, the DOM object model, we already know that, right? It's based on a specification. Some of that RSS stuff is not quite the same thing. So when you're using that DOM and you're trying to parse all that data, you're going to have to look at your document itself a little bit. So if you're ever involved in that, sometimes you'll have to make adjustments based on the format of that feed you're using or that document, so to speak. it's just an XML document, right? So as far as modifying the DOM, changes made to the DOM are reflected immediately in the browser display. No page refresh is needed, right? And then obviously if you go ahead and refresh your page, whenever you refresh your page, any changes you made to that DOM are gone. And the browser is going to recreate that DOM from that page reload, right? Basically from the physical HTML document, it's going to create that DOM. Once you hit that refresh, it gets rid of any kind of changes that you might have made. Navigating the DOM. So node relationships, you have a parent node of a given node, and then there's also walking through. You can get first child of a node. You can get child nodes, a node list. So like if you grab all the A tags, you're going to have an array, a list of nodes, right? A node list. And then you could loop through that node list to get what you need out of it, right? But there's also the idea of a first child. So if you have a div tag that has multiple A tags, you can do a first child on that to get the very, very first child. And then sometimes you may want to be walking that thing where you're doing a loop, and you may get the first child and then you want to do the next element sibling, right? And you might do things different based on which one's in the list, right? So next is just going to go to that next sibling, all right? Accessing nodes, we kind of looked at this a little bit already, that you got your query selector. Remember, that's only going to return the first element that matches the specified CSS selector, very first one. Where query selector all is going to return a node list of all elements. You got get element by ID, returns the element of a specified ID. So, and you want to make sure that, it's always important just to kind of review that when you use an ID on an element, that needs to be unique, right? You only want to have one unique ID. Get elements by tag name. Returns an HTML collection of all elements with a specified tag name. Working with text nodes. So if you get the text node, remember the text nodes are going to be the value that's in between that tag, right? So node value gets this or sets the text content of a text node. Text content gets and sets the text content of a node and its descendants. Okay, working with HTML elements and attributes. So the DOM HTML specification provides properties and that simplify working with HTML elements. So obviously element.source gets image elements for image elements, right? Element.href is for the A tags. Element.value is for input. So these are the different attributes depending on what kind of tag, right? Images don't have a .value tag. Images have a .source tag, right? So same thing with A tags. A tags don't have a .value tag. They have href tag, right? So them are the properties that are associated with those different tags. So you need to make sure you're using the correct ones. Element attributes. You can get attribute. You get attribute. All you need to do is use the correct name, right, of the attribute. To set your attribute, you need both name and value. You can all do like a test. It's basically a Boolean, true or false. Does this element contain this attribute? If it does, it returns true. Else it returns false. Also, you can do a remove attribute. You can remove the attribute from the element completely. As far as form controls, you got radio buttons. Multiple radio buttons in a group must have the same name attribute. And you can kind of a little bit of review there. Remember how that's important for because radio buttons. You're usually gonna when you group them together, you group them maybe like on a contact form. Contact me by email. Contact me by phone. Etc. And then you choose which one. Well, you want to have the contact name, the contact type being the same name on each one of those radio buttons, so that when you click one of them, it's going to send that to the backend server. So you could say contact being phone or being email, etc. Right? Each radio button should have a unique ID. Checked a property that there's that checked attribute, which is a property that indicates whether a radio button is selected, true or false, right? Check boxes. Checked a property that indicates whether a checkbox is checked, true or false. Setting checked to false clears the checkbox. So remember, checked is one of those attributes. You don't have a name value thing, right? It'll just say checked, right? So keep that in mind. Text areas and text inputs. Value gets and sets the text content of a text area or text input. Select elements. Change event occurs when a user selects a new item. Focus and blur. So focus sets focus, blur removes focus from a control. Let's see, form submissions. Yeah, and this is important. This, there's a few students that kind of struggle with this a little bit, I guess. Just, when they were creating some forms, when we were doing that a little bit, just for the fact that when you use, the difference between submit and button, submit's used to submit form data to the server. So if you say submit, you click that button, you click the submit, it's going to actually submit something, right? Some actions happening, right? And so usually, if you don't want, if you're using a button for a different purpose, you don't want to have submit, right? You want to just use button. Does not submit the form data, right? And we've done all of these, and then obviously resets all controls in the form to their initial values. So now we come to DOM manipulation. We've kind of looked at all these. Creating elements, we can create an element by passing a tag name that we want to create. We have create text node. We'll create a new text node. So then we can create a new element, then create a text node, and then we append this element with this text node that we created, right? Obviously we give it variables, and then that's how we do that. We create the element, right? We create the text node, and then we append this element that we created with the text node. Event handling. Add event listener. We've obviously done this a lot. We did the DOM content loaded quite a bit. Modifying element content. So changing the node value of a text node, changing the value, and changing the text content of elements. So always remember that node value relates to a text node, right? Where text content refers to elements, right? Changing the text content of elements. Accessing sibling elements, next element sibling, and I guess that's all that's in there. So I would, I would go ahead and review this document before you do the written test. Should help you out in that. So that's about all I have for today. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'll send you some links, some references, maybe to the W3 schools, the DOM specification that's on MDN, and I'll go ahead and send you the the resume stuff as well, the sample resume, and how to add that object so you can add a PDF to your web portfolio. So please let me know if you have any questions, and have a good day. Thanks.